Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday Morning Blitz for NFL Week 18, aka the pre-playoffs edition of the Tuesday Morning Blitz. It is I, Jackson Roberts. It is he, Cale Clinton, on a Monday morning, and playoff football to talk about. I don't know how it could possibly be more exciting, Cale. I mean, you mentioned coming in, long weekend for you, maybe not like, the biggest ball consumption of your life, but like this is the type of thing where, even if you're feeling C plus at the start of the day, you got to be up by the time the record button hits because it's playoff football, man.
We're locked in, and frankly, couldn't have better matchups. I don't think the whole bit of the script writing, and the NFL really leaned into that in the preseason, and it now makes me skeptical because it's like, you couldn't have planned a better introductory playoff run.
Completely agree. And it's another year where I'm not certain we need all 7 playoff teams, because if there's one thing to nitpick about these playoff matchups, it is the 7 seeds. But the NFL has made it very clear that 7 playoff teams, 17 game schedule is their prerogative. It's how they're going to make the most money. Super wild card weekend.
I was going to say, when are we going to stop?
Year.
When are we going to stop calling it Super Wild Card Weekend?
Absolutely never. I'm sick of it too, but absolutely never. And you'll notice it's another year where, I forget. Yeah, it's Verizon, right? So it's Super Wild Card Weekend presented by Verizon, and then next week is Divisional Weekend presented by Intuit TurboTax. So it's not just the crazy names. It's also we're going to have 18,000 Verizon promos read to you during these games.
I'm so excited to commercialize every leg of the NFL playoffs and not
exactly
the finale.
Yeah. Well, we got to do our Super Bowl commercials draft very soon, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, before they drop the cheater ads or the cheater articles that we always pick up on. So we gotta get that together quick. Lots of other playoff action outside the white lines that we have to look forward to.
Yes, indeed. We've got to, I'd say, set the deadline for that bye divisional weekend.
Yeah, I think so. Now, before we get to Super Wildcard Weekend, we've got some business to clean up. Most notably, it is Black Monday, and I would say a lighter Black Monday than we've experienced in recent years. The major firings today, many of which trickled out, Sunday morning into Sunday night, and, were finalized today. Goodbye to Ron Rivera, former Commanders head coach, Arthur Smith, former Falcons head coach, Scott Fitterer, former Carolina Panthers GM, and noteworthy, not Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick, as of this posting, still the head coach of the New England Patriots, and gave a press conference this morning in which he basically said, I'm still under contract. Your move, Rob. So that's where we're at with Black Monday. Cale, what jumps off the page most to you out of those?
Feels weird to fire the Panthers. Like, the Panthers GM was the longest tenured of the bunch, had survived the Matt Rule firing. Not the longest tenured of the bunch, but like weirdly long tenured. I thought when you would get rid of Reich, you'd get rid of Fitterer. We'll get to the 2 head coaches in a second. I don't think keeping Belichick around through Black Monday is that weird, in the sense that you're never going to dismiss a 21-year legendary 6-time Super Bowl winning head coach at the drop of a hat. What I thought was more telling was how ravenous like Atlanta and Washington were for Belichick as early as like Saturday night reporting. But them not making a decision in New England. A small part of me is now like, are they just going to keep him and run it back? Like, I don't know how you trust Belichick to develop at this point. Jaden Daniels, maybe Drake May, maybe Michael Penix, Bo Nix. Bo Nix had a heart attack, but I know he's like a different quarterback than it was at Auburn. But I can't like Brady and Bo Nix played at the same time. Being more realistic, Herbert and Bo Nix played at the same time, which feels insane.
Same with Michael Penix, though, to be fair.
I get it, but
I love Michael Penix. I enjoy watching him play football, and I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. But he's also he might be an octogenarian, and he also might have ravioli for ACLs. So these are my main concerns with Penix.
Yeah, I can't do that again. I just think of RG3. Jaden Daniels, who knows? But regardless, I don't think his dismissal, if it comes, will come later. The press conference was also very telling that he was talking a lot about would he relinquish GM control, and it was interesting that he kind of has in the past, but like he already has developed a president of player personnel, a system for getting a bunch of guys in the building and doing recruiting outside of him and doing scouting outside of him, not recruiting, but the fact that he always had final say. And I'm curious as to what a Belichick roster without final say looks like, or a Belichick roster without a Bill disciple at OC. I wonder.
That's what I was going to say. I want to know what a Bill coaching staff without Bill having the final say would look like. And I know most coaches have a lot of say in who's on their staff, but like the biggest thing to me, aside from like, drafting's one thing, player development hasn't been good by any means, but also like he's never hired anyone to his coaching staff, essentially, to a top tier position that he didn't already know or promote from within. So you need a real offensive coordinator this year, and whether that comes with Bill at head coach or not, that's the thing I'd be most concerned about with keeping Bill is like, can you hire somebody that you don't already have in your phone? I simply do not know.
And also, you've now got to likely replace Gerard Mayo, who in the last 3 weeks has talked about how it's his, he feels he is ready for a head coaching opportunity. He will take that in New England or elsewhere. He's a big asset, and he's pretty universally praised around the league. Probably would have made that top 5 defensive coordinators poll from, I think it was the NFLPA, if he had a DC title, which he hasn't. He's still a linebackers coach.
Right.
Yeah. Enough about the coach that hasn't been fired.
Yeah. I'm curious before you move on, I am curious about whether Mayo would have like a realistic shot at another head coaching gig, just because there aren't that many open right now, especially if the Raiders hang on to Antonio Pierce, and B, there's a lot of teams that are very clearly more so looking for offense. And, defensive head coach, first-time head coach. It's working right now with Ryans. I think Flores might get another shot before Mayo got another shot too. So that would be a defensive name that might have an edge over him. So interested to see if Mayo, were to get that shot, assuming the Patriots do not give him that opportunity and get rid of Belichick this year.
The thing with that is we've seen nothing but offensive head coaching hiring cycles. The biggest names being, Steichen, McDaniel, every possible, McVay, Shanahan disciple we've seen, and it's starting to come back around with some defensive hirings. Gannon, D'Amico Ryans in Houston. Like, we're starting to see more defensive hirings, and eventually the counter to all the hyper offensive ball will be defensive talent, because frankly, there's just because of all the offensive hiring, there's a logjam of defensive hiring. There is too much, there's too much good defensive talent that will probably see a good defensive wave, in part because we just saw such a strong defensive year from the NFL, and we're always a little late to the zag that is offenses picked up around the league before the offensive hiring cycle wave, and defensive play will pick up and continue to rise before we get the defensive wave. So this might be Commanders today are interviewing both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. They're interviewing the defensive side of the ball. They might go double down on defense. And the Falcons are looking for defense. The There's still going to be guys like Bieniemy who are going to get head coaching gigs, and even Antonio Pierce. Like, they still need to interview 2 minority coaching candidates in addition to Pierce to hire him from interim to full-time head coach. So Mayo will likely get an interview there. Like, oh no, they just fired Ziegler. I was going to say, like, there are New England roots and connections within that building, but, like, we'll still probably get one regardless because he's one of the top head coaching candidates on the market right now. So, I don't know. Dan Quinn probably gets a job soon. Flores, you said, put on a masterclass, getting an underperforming squad to a pretty elite defensive status, complete turnaround there. So there's just a huge wealth of defensive talent in the league right now. We'll kind of see how that shakes out going forward. But you are right. I did think there would be more jobs.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, there are only technically 5, with one of them being the Raiders, which, I'm not going to say it's pseudo-filled, but every player in the building is calling for Pierce. And yesterday, Mark Davis doesn't give a very encouraging answer on Pierce, but, like, I still think I would be more surprised than not if Pierce was hired. And then aside from that, it's Carolina, it's Atlanta, it's Washington, and it's LA. Those are the 4
Forgot about LA
that I can think of.
I'm shocked they're sticking with Eberflus in Chicago. I'm surprised they're sticking with a full regime in the New York Jets building. There's so many jobs I'm surprised are still. I'm shocked the Saints are still sticking with their guys.
I was going to give you the Saints. I think the Saints are the main. If you're looking at my headline, you're saying, why does Jackson think Black Monday missed the mark? It's because Dennis Smith is still walking in New Orleans.
Who are you more? Not that there is, like, I think both were writing on the wall. Is there, of the 2, would you see would you see Arthur Smith or Ron Rivera coming back into the mainstream cycle of getting another job? Not necessarily head coaching job, but doing a really good job as a respective coordinator.
So Ron Rivera is interesting to me because he's 62 and a cancer survivor. So I don't know if he's, like, interested in that, like, now would be a really good time probably for Ron Rivera to, spend time with the family. Had a really, really good football career. Never got the ring, obviously. So if that's something he's interested in, you could see him going back out on the market and trying to get something. But to me, that sounds more like, the current Jim Caldwell role, front office consultant, easy hours, don't have to be on site every day. That would be my preference if I were Ron Rivera, but I'm not Ron Rivera. And maybe he does still have that fire. Arthur Smith, I think, he's not getting a head coaching job this cycle. He's not one of those guys. I think that's clear. But I do think that, still treading the tires there, go revamp your image somewhere as an offensive coordinator. It did go really poorly for him. Like, of all of the firings, he was probably the one where, like, he messed up the cushiest possible position in that division with that kind of talent on his offense. So I think major accomplishments would have to be had in his next role for him to get back in the head coaching conversation.
I still think he could be an awesome coordinator. I just think his issue was he just never had a quarterback. He had the last year of Matt Ryan. He had the Mariota Ritter combination, and he had then Ritter Heineke. 3 years of never having a single quarterback option is going to be tough. Did he even have? I might be misremembering if he had the 1 year of Ryan or if that was still Dan Quinn. Did he?
Not Dan Quinn. Did they have another coach between Quinn and Arthur Smith? I want to say they did, but maybe I'm misremembering that. I'm looking that up.
No, that's it. Raheem Morris. They had Raheem Morris in 2020, but Arthur Smith was the last year of Matt Ryan.
That sounds right.
Yeah. The Raheem Morris was the interim for Dan Quinn.
Gotcha. Okay. So now I'm having recollections of 2020 Dan Quinn getting fired, and I wouldn't have been able to tell you who the intern was, but I didn't feel like they went straight from Dan Quinn's fired because Arthur Smith's his replacement, and in a way I was right, but yeah, I mean basically just Quinn and Smith have been their guys since we were in high school.
But straight up not having not even like I'm not asking for a 4,000-yard passer, but like straight up a guy who can put the ball on a receiver. Like even if you talk about the waste of 3 top 10 picks at 3 respective skill positions, like he was still able to get great games out of Tyler Algier and Johnny Smith. Like he was able to generate some level of explosives, and he was able to like put some of the players he used in positions to win. It's just he had nobody at quarterback and a kind of middling offensive line situation.
Like I think those are guys too.
Yeah,
I mean, I think Algier and Johnny Smith are, they're nobody's third options. Like they're obviously not first round talents like those other guys, but they're also really useful parts of the offense that the next guy will want to utilize in addition to whichever they keep out of London, Pitts, and Bijan.
Yes. They'll have all of them building. It'll be interesting.
It should, right? I mean, the only thought is like maybe do you trade Pitts for assets, but his value is at a low, so I don't see that happening. And yeah, I mean, mostly you just need defense. So you should have your offense figured out. I mean, maybe you'd like to add one more receiver, but other than that, they're pretty well stocked.
Someone's got to knock off Tampa Bay. I'm very pumped about I'm very pumped that Tampa Bay will be the representative, if only because they are the most competent team going forward. But someone's got to win the AFC South, and it likely won't be New Orleans or Carolina anytime soon.
No. Well, New Orleans, I mean, maybe they just keep performing cat magic until they're a failed state like 2004 Greece. But
I was gonna say they deflate their cap dollars like the Zimbabwe $1 trillion bill.
Yeah. No, the value of one Saints dollar is like one Saints contract is a 7th round or an undrafted free agent. Everyone on the Saints is living in a poorhouse like Brock Purdy. That's how it's going to be in 5 years. Kale's yawning, folks.
I don't know. They're going to be who else is in that 22 receiving class just in hell? Like it's at this point Drake London, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. Who are the other guys I'm leaving off that are just in a perpetual state of quarterbackless purgatory?
George Pickens. I don't know if you want to count like Traylon Burks is a weird one. Man, the rest of them are pretty well set. Jahan Dotson, you could argue.
Yes, I would argue. Jahan Dotson is good.
Yeah, I mean, Jameson Williams, it's his problem, not the Lions. And the Lions are good. It's just he's not. John Mechie, can he be on the field? What are your thoughts on Wan'Dale Robinson?
Wan'Dale's nice. Wan'Dale's nice as hell, and he can't be the when the Giants stops running gadget plays and having a quarterback. I would put him in like the quarterback purgatory situation for sure.
Yeah,
but he just can't stay healthy. Taekwon, I'd throw Taekwon in there for the quarterback hell.
We don't know what the heck he's capable of at all. Not like Taekwon he's shown us anything, but also not his fault.
Taekwon could be Tyreek Hill, and he's just played with quarterbacks who can't throw 10 yards. I'm just saying we don't know. We don't know. He could be a burner, and we just don't know. Same with Sky Moore. Just a quarterback who can't throw to him.
Yeah. No, I did forget about Sky Moore, the guy that maybe we were highest on just because of the team he got drafted to.
I was high on him, if only because of the I was like, dude, small school, like everyone's sleeping on him. All the reports, I forget if he was senior or Shrine Bowl, but he was one of them. And I was like, everyone's sleeping on Sky Moore. He's going to be awesome. Now he's in the Chiefs. He's going to be incredible. And it just never worked. It is funny. I guess Dubs is one. Romeo Dubs, Khalil Shakir's in this draft. God, they're dudes.
They are. I mean, I think I think Dubs has been a pretty resounding success in Green Bay, don't you think? I mean, for a guy
he has
late,
he had a
influx of talent around him. I mean, Watson's the disappointment between the two of them.
Still like that, which is this
draft, could be good.
Right? Watson is this draft. Watson is the one I'm thinking of. There's so many people in hell in this draft.
Yeah, but it's not. I mean, it's not Jordan Love's fault that Christian Watson can't stay on the field.
It's Jordan will receive MVP votes. Love's fault? Absolutely not. So he'll get third place. I
wanted to talk about them, but mostly just in a sense of like, if you're a Chicago Bears fan, are you just in hell right now? Like, freaking Jordan Love just beat you twice and made the playoffs in his first year as a starter after everyone popped champagne when Aaron Rodgers was finally on the way out. Your guy's probably gone because of contract situations and resetting the quarterback clock, and Jordan Love is a playoff starter.
You knew this was going to happen. Jordan Love had a 4,000-yard season before any Chicago Bears quarterback in the 103-year franchise history has. 102-year. It's bad out here.
It's really not. It's not good. The Justin Fields saying goodbye to Chicago felt pretty real. And, while I agree with the decision, it is still like it's tough to be on to the next one if you're Chicago. I mean, you felt like there was a good chance that this was the one. And as much as you feel like you have an even better chance to hit on the next one, it doesn't happen until it happens. And the Packers just never have to worry about it.
Justin Fields is going to be so sick in Atlanta.
Agreed. Pittsburgh. Or
not Pittsburgh. We're not sending him to Pittsburgh. I refuse.
Like in Pittsburgh.
I won't.
What do you want, Mason Rudolph back in Pittsburgh next year? What's your solution for them?
We'll figure it out. I'm not solving Pittsburgh. I'm solving Atlanta. I'm trying to make the coolest team possible on my NFL, Ultimate Madden franchise reset. I'm taking over the Falcons and I'm making them cool again.
Red helmets all the time. If that's your goal, red helmets are the number one solution.
No, we're wearing the ombre numbers. We're wearing the fade numbers all the time.
I don't have the fade numbers. That's LA has the fade numbers. They have the fade jerseys.
They have the fade jerseys. We're wearing the fade jerseys.
They look like icy logos. Shit's crazy.
Isn't it black to red? I thought there was like very like Vader.
It's red at the shoulders, and then it turns black by the bottom and just flows right into the black hands.
Cool as hell.
It's so bad.
We're so back.
How would you gradient those two? Whatever, I'm done. I think we're going to do reverse order of the show this week. We're going to do all our admin stuff now, game balls, uniforms, head scratchers, and then we're going to preview the 6 playoff matchups, seat of the pants there, just what we're looking forward to. But first off, game balls. Offensively, fresh in our minds, Kale, who did you have?
This was the most Josh Allen game of all time. He does such dumb stuff, and it's so cool. I wish I had a quarterback this talented and this himbo. Just absolute like moronic interception, like throws you should not make. And then like all of a sudden he's barreling over Cater Kohu on a 3rd and 13, fighting for every last inch of yard. The pure gall of this man never ceases to impress me. I love Josh Allen. I fear Josh Allen. And most importantly, I respect Josh Allen. Josh Allen gets an offensive game ball. And I wanted to throw this out. Is it the most Josh Allen stat to lead the league in both touchdowns and almost interceptions? Like if you didn't just have a historically bad Sam Howell season or just a high volume passing Sam Howell season, you would like Josh Allen would lead the league with 18 interceptions. He might be close on turnovers, but 30 of 38, 359, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, an additional fumble in there. Just goated. 67 rushing yards too. Just all-time Josh Allen game.
Yeah. It's the all-time, like, it always looks worse with him in the box score in terms of the turnovers. Like, yes, he turned it over 3 times. I'm not saying it's acceptable.
Turnovers
one of them was a 4th and 2 where it got picked off in the end zone, so it actually helped them. Like, it was better that the DB caught it instead of it dropping to the ground. Like, he's going to have turnovers, but he's also gonna have turnovers that don't really hurt the team, and that was the classic case of one of them. Like, the Bills, as much as they wouldn't want to have a quarterback who's close to leading the league in turnovers, they rarely get so badly burned by those turnovers that, like, I'd much rather have a volatile guy than a guy that just has no volume. Like, Bryce Young barely turned the ball over this year, but the worst efficiency rookie season since Josh Rosen. Like, there are very different ways to hurt the team, and right now I think we're in this wave of, like, it is okay to turn it over once, even twice a game. I think the Cleveland Browns with Flacco have figured that out to a T. Like, we're just going to chuck it all over the yard and try to make stuff happen now. And most of the time, we're either going to get a deep ball to Amari Cooper or a pass interference. Like, that's kind of the new wave of offense right now if you don't have, top-tier playmakers and a top-5 quarterback.
From an EPA perspective, and PFF's been on this tip for a while, interceptions don't matter that much. Like, you'd rather – like, you don't want a full-on Jameis season, but you'd rather have Josh Allen as your quarterback than, just a guy who's overly cautious, because you get more plus out of it. Like, you'd rather a guy willing to take those shots than not. So I don't even care about the interceptions.
And that also kind of makes what CJ Stroud did this year, and even Jordan Love the last, like, second half of the year where he only had the 3 interceptions, all that more impressive is, like, those guys weren't sacrificing volume to do it. Whereas a lot of quarterbacks who didn't have many turnovers this year, it was like high key at the sacrifice of volume. So shout outs all around. And I completely agree with your Josh Allen game ball. I mean, forget the turnovers, 430 yards in a clinching game, including some, like, massive big balls runs. Like, that's how you hand it out right there. So I'll go next, and I will give my offensive game ball to Nico Collins. I feel as though that is fairly self-explanatory because he was the Houston Texans passing offense in a playoff clinching game. For just set the tone immediately. First play from scrimmage, 75 yards, house call. And, as much as this is like a CJ Stroud hold the laces of the game ball type of performance, he has the 3rd and long. I forget exactly how many yards, but Stroud off his back foot, tight window throw right to Nico Collins, tackled inside the 10 and horse collared to set up the game-winning touchdown. And I think the most telling stat, 9 catches, 195 yards, and a touchdown. Only 9 targets. Didn't miss once all night. I don't know how, if you're Indianapolis, you're seeing this Nico Collins game and you're not like, I'm putting 4 guys on Nico Collins. Other than that, all they had was Dalton Schultz, who only had 1 catch until the 4th quarter, and John Mechie, who, love John Mechie as a prospect, basically hasn't figured into a game plan until now because of necessity out of all these guys getting hurt. So don't know how you didn't do more to stop Nico Collins, but shout out to him because he killed the Indianapolis Colts.
Shout out to him. This was it's not like we've been waiting on Nico Collins. Nico Collins has already arrived this season, but he really has been so just so good for this Texans team in a season where it was, maybe going to be a Robert Woods, we'd already talked about how Mechie unfortunately cannot stay on the field.
Tank Dell
is the tiniest good receiver in the league. Cannot stay on the field. Noah Brown is also in that camp of just, not. He's not a legit wide receiver 2, so having him in there is always going to be a bit of a gamble. But Nico Collins through and through has just been so reliable and part of the reason why Houston was able to have this kind of resurgent return to form. Not quite a no. They hit double-digit win season. 10-win season's big. That's quite the turnaround for them.
Started 0-2 and made
Going
season.
10-5 in your last 15.
Yeah. No, and not just that, but it's like Nico Collins at the start of the year, you would have said, like him as a prospect, could be a good wide receiver 2, maybe like low-end wide receiver 1, like firmly establish himself by the end of the season as a wide receiver 1. And when they get Dell back next year, now that's like they have two very different, I'm not going to say they're both ones, but they're both really good and they have completely different, ways you can use them. And the other thing I like about it is Stroud, Ohio State, Collins, Michigan. Like that's a fun pairing to like dominate the league potentially for the next 10 years. As two guys that hated each other as of a few years ago.
Yeah, Nico was good behind Brandon Cooks. It's just we did not.
You never know until they get the right guy to throw to him.
He was like you said, good prospect. And promising. You didn't want to be too high on him, but like now is a legitimate asset to this team, and that's important. That's special.
Absolutely. Now, let's move on and talk defense, and I'll switch up the order here. How about a guy on a team that clinched the playoffs yesterday without scoring a touchdown? How about a guy who is still a vestige of a Super Bowl winning defense from a few years ago? And a guy who made the play of the day on defense yesterday, Antoine Winfield Jr. I'll set the stage. It is just a game where neither offense can get going whatsoever. As it turns out, the Panthers end the season having not scored in their final 2 games, a.k.a. they will be in September and they won't have scored since Christmas, which is a tough look. But anyway, they almost scored. They should have scored. Long pass down the sideline. DJ Chark breaks free, going for the goal line, dives at the pylon, and Antoine Winfield Jr. pulls the Peanut Tillman punch while the dive is in midair. I mean, you can talk crap on DJ Chark all you want for not holding the ball, but that is an all-time heads-up play. Needs to be some luck involved, too, that the ball stays in bounds, I guess. Still a touchback if it goes out of bounds, so I retract. Like, that's such a sick play, and who knows, like they didn't score a touchdown. So even though they ended up getting 9 points, if the Panthers get a touchdown there, that can completely flip that game. And the Bucs clearly weren't going to get anything going on offense. So it's dicey. It's a dicey proposition as to whether they make the playoffs if Antoine Winfield Jr. doesn't step up there.
It is nice to know, though, that that single-handedly kept the very funny stat alive of the Panthers did not score a point in their final 8 quarters of football. That's funny.
That's tough. That's really tough. Also tough that I'll just expose myself here. We've talked a lot this year about, the wins draft and, basically just how I didn't have a good read on this NFL season. I drafted the Patriots. I drafted the Carolina Panthers. Things weren't good. Similarly, we did an NFL preseason props podcast. I didn't do well. I did save it with my TJ Watt to lead the league in sacks at plus 850. That would have hit, and I would have probably made all my money back on the props podcast, but I had 3 quarterback scale to go over on their passing yards props this year. You want to know who those 3 quarterbacks were? It was Russell Wilson, Mac Jones, and Bryce Young. Those were my 3 guys. So, hand up. Did not do a good job reading the NFL quarterback scene this year.
You did not. And I said Lamar Jackson was MVP. So, 2 sides the same coin.
Look, I can give everyone their bad picks. That's not what I'm just here to talk about me, Cal. You don't have to go over the top.
No. We can. You don't have to bring up drafting. The 2 most middling teams in the NFC South. In the 5th and 6th round of the wins draft. You don't have to bring that up. That's fine.
It's actually 4th and 5th if you want to get real specific. The thing about the wins draft is it is crazy that like any team that I could have picked after the Panthers, which I considered to be just like, one of the last few draftable teams. And Nolan had just stolen the Rams from me, which I thought was a good pick, and they get to 10 wins. The teams that were either taken or not taken behind the Panthers in our wins draft were the Texans, the Colts, the Bucks, and then the Cardinals. So the only one that didn't like massively outperform the Panthers was the Cardinals, and even they would have been a clear upgrade. Meanwhile, you could have picked 3 teams that won at least 9 games. So when we do that next year, fans at home, do not stop listening after the 8th and 9th round because every single pick matters a lot.
That's where the draft really gets made. Because frankly, the biggest fall off was the going like all of us picked some of our worst teams in the as the Golden Goose. I literally my lowest win team was my Golden Goose team, and then went on to pick the 8-win Raiders and 9-win Colts.
Sure did. And let's not forget about that. Like, there's teams we think are going to be mid that end up being bad. So that 5th, 6th round can really kill you as well. You as mentioned, had the 2 bad NFC South teams that still won, enough games. Nolan takes the Chargers, who absolutely bottom out, and then of course I had the Pats. So
when we look back, I do just want to take a break. We are halfway through game balls, and we will get back to them. But I do just want to take a break and do some regular season reflecting. When you look at like who had the most disappointing season, like not just like that's not just saying bad season, that is saying fall below expectations. They're like maybe I'm just kind of numb to the Chargers being a bottom 5 team in the league as am I the Pats. It feels like there weren't many teams that were just outright performed well under expectations. Like, is it outside of Jacksonville, who is legitimately like abject failure of a season?
Yeah.
And I'd throw the Saints in that category because of the ease of their schedule and just underperforming that. But it's like not even in the same schedule. It's not even in the same ballpark. Same with the Falcons. But like,
I mean, I'll give you another one. It's not without cause, but the New York Jets were drafted 10th in our wins pool and were eliminated by Thanksgiving. And I know it's because one very specific guy got injured, but they didn't even try to replace him. And we know why.
I have a self-refreshing Twitter feed on my side monitor, and I did just want to throw in a nice 2-tweet series from Rich Cimini. Where is it? It's Rodgers got to the podium. Aaron Rodgers won't address his Kimmel comments. He says, tune in tomorrow on the McAfee show, #Jets. Immediate follow-up tweet. Aaron Rodgers offered a candid take on what the Jets need to do to turn it around. Flush the bullshit, meaning eliminate everything that is not directly involved in winning. Nice twofer.
Tune in tomorrow on McAfee to hear about how I'm going to flush the bullshit. That's amazing. Yeah. I think for all anyone wants to say about Nick Wright, I've been just like locked into everything Nick Wright says lately about Aaron Rodgers. It's been incredible.
I've had Nick Wright blocked on Twitter for years, so I don't see like Mahomes rants and LeBron rants. And now the clips have just naturally come to my timeline and circumvented that. And he's spitting, actually.
He's on it, man.
He's spitting.
It's that Syracuse education coming out when he needs it. Ah, man, like that's bad if you're the Jets. Like this is the offseason starting off on a very sour note. Yeah, I got nothing more to add. Aaron Rodgers will be the Tuesday Morning Blitz Bozo of the Year. Irie Harris Bozo of the Year. So you can look forward to that pod for many other awards that we won't tip ahead of time. But if anyone doesn't vote for Rodgers on that one, I don't know what we're doing here.
The full quote from The Athletic, Zach Rosenblatt. anything in this building that we're doing that has nothing to do with winning needs to be assessed. Everything that we do has to have a purpose. The bullshit that has nothing to do with winning has to get out of the building. So, good call. We're all trying to find the guy who did this.
What are you talking about, dude?
My defensive game ball to a fun New York story. Xavier McKinney, in a full dismantling of the Philadelphia Eagles, who, in terms of disappointing seasons, quite the close to their year. McKinney had a pair of picks, probably one of the better noteworthy single defensive performances. It didn't mean anything in the grand scheme. Giants, only moved down to 6 overall in their draft pick. It didn't quite keep the Eagles out of the 2 seed. It just kind of put insult to injury on their Dallas clinching 2 seed play. But I did just want to point out there are a ton of Giants who will the Giants are having a huge face change. And it was really there are a lot of these sorts of moments in the NFL. You saw Derrick Henry address the Tennessee Titans crowd, thanking them for the best 8 years of his life. We touched on the last day of Justin Fields. You saw the potential goodbye to Belichick. But the Giants, for some reason, really, really warmed my cockles. Really, really touched my heart.
Whoa.
You've never heard that?
No.
Never heard that term? Well, learn something new every day, Jackson.
Thank you.
Cochles, I believe. But the Giants wave goodbye to Sterling Shepard. It took time to stop in the red zone and really give him a standing O, full offensive line, pumping up the crowd to get cheers going for Sterling Shepard, who looked pretty emotional in the moment. Saquon has been talking a lot how he wants to be a Giant for life, and the writing on the wall is that he will not be after this season. He also had a potential game ball worthy performance with pair of rushing touchdowns, less overall production, but came within a stone's throw of 100 yards and had a pretty big 46-yard long gain there. And McKinney's one of those guys, second-round pick in the final year of his rookie deal, drafted in 2020. Who knows what he will if he's getting brought back. There might be a bit of a face change. The Giants are expecting to have Kafka and Wink back, although Wink has talked about wanting another head coaching opportunity. But
good luck, brother.
In terms of just having guys in the building, there's going to be a lot of new faces in New York, especially if I guess New York's riding out Daniel Jones. But there's going to be just a lot of new faces and a lot of Giant staples going by the wayside. And it was a very emotional day. So if this is the last game for Xavier McKinney in a Giants uniform, good way to cap it off.
Of all the teams that won 6 games or fewer this year, probably the most cathartic end to the season for the Giants. You had, the full circle moment of getting absolutely blown out on your home field to open the season by a division rival in the Cowboys. And then you get to, close it off with absolutely beating the crap out of another division rival who's going to the playoffs. So, even though you clearly failed on your, stated goals at the start of this season, you get to kind of wreck the Eagles on the way out, and their playoff hopes are looking like they're in shambles. And it was a weird season, start to finish. You had the 2-8 start. You had the weird Tommy Cutlett side project. You had Tyrod coming back and actually looking good. And, at the end of the day, the Giants had a bad season, but there were times when they looked like they could have a bright future. And obviously that future is going to look a lot different than the roster was this year. So you're right. It was a nice cathartic way to end the season and kind of send some of those guys off on a high note. So props to the New York Giants and, of course, their lovely stadium, MetLife Stadium, the host of yesterday's drubbing. Special teams game balls. I don't want to do this every week, Kale, but are we in agreement that there's just one this week?
There's one. The single most game-changing special teams play of the week. It's so funny that so many of the one-score games just ended on touchdowns, which is usually not the case in one-score games in my mind. But yeah, there's only one special teams game ball this week.
Yeah, 96-yard punt return touchdown from Deontay Hardy completely changes the complexion of Sunday Night Football and by extension the AFC East title. Josh Allen obviously took it from there, helped that the Dolphins offense continually shot itself in the foot in the second half, and we can dissect the anatomy of Tyreek Hill injury leading to Tua throwing his last pass of the game to Chase Claypool, of all people, and that being intercepted. But none of that happens without a clear, momentum shifting. I mean, Deontay Hardy, not only did he house that, it was just like he was gone by the time he hit the 30-yard line. It was an electric run back, not well covered, certainly. And again, they were down 7. Not only did they tie it, but the Dolphins never even threatened to score again after that. So well done, Deontay Hardy. Anything else on that game, Kale? Because as I mentioned, Dolphins not looking too hot right now.
I'm more worried, respectively, about the Eagles and the Dolphins. But we talked last week. Dolphins are having a bit of just a talent dearth right now. You lose Bradley Chubb for playing him too late. You've got Melvin Ingram is going to be a rotational guy, coming in for the occasional pass rush, and now he's like dropping into coverage, playing starting edge. He was
the funniest looking guy on the field last night. It was the Drewski Pat Ricard meme all over again. I don't want to we're not shaming anyone out here, but Melvin Ingram looks huge out there, and he's trying to chase down Khalil Shakir on a wheel route. That's not going to end well.
I mean, it's not his place. It's just that's not speaking against him. He's 30. He's 100 days away from turning 35. He's 6'2", 250 D end. That's a true, not edge D end. He is just not meant to be in coverage roles against gadget slot receivers.
Yeah, I thought you were just saying he is just not 250, because I do not think Melvin Ingram is still 250.
He's probably I don't know. I won't. As a man who's probably about his weight, I won't.
Fair, very fair. The number 9 part of it was just very funny to me as well. It's we can't get this guy a double-digit number. You gotta make him look like the biggest guy on the field with that number 9 in the middle of his chest.
No, frankly, we've got to start giving offensive linemen single digits. We've got to really lean into it.
How about 00 out there? I feel like that's a good offensive line number as well. Let's go uniforms. I'm gonna call an audible on my uniforms this week. I had one written down. The one I had written down was Chicago Green Bay, and I wasn't in love with it at all. But I think it was one of those late season classic uniforms on a classic field, at least gets me excited, and I didn't have anything else to shout out. I'm going to give it to not a game that I liked for the uniforms, but a game that I have exciting news to report on, because the Houston Texans, who did defeat the Indianapolis Colts, as we know, are getting new uniforms next year. But we've got a Houston Chronicle article out today. We've already known that the Texans will have 4 new uniforms next year. What we did not know was the team's head of marketing and communications, Doug Vosick, has quotes in this article, and he says he thinks all corners of the fan base will find what they're looking for in at least one of the 4 new designs. So let me try to get you excited about the Texans' new uniforms for next year, Kale. Here is his quote, my Tuesday morning reading. Vosick says, "We said, okay, if you want timeless traditional, here's the one uniform that answers that. If you want to take it one step further and say timeless traditional gets refreshed, we have one for that. If you said, hey, I'm into this bull thing, let's get wild, we have one for that. And if someone said, hey, I want you to pay homage to H-Town Blue, which is that Oilers blue, and the players are saying, I want something tough, I want something mean, we've got something for that." All I heard was, hey, I'm into this bull thing. Let's get wild. Bring it on, dude.
I did hear this bull thing. I am so excited. I hope there's creativity. I hope there's some weirdness. I hope there is a jersey that does not age well in 3 years, but I will love it all the same. I'm excited. You've really gotten me excited about this.
Let's get wild, man. It couldn't be more stoked about that specific jersey out of this set. A timeless traditional, whatever. I'll see what you mean by that. They've already said they're not changing the logos. They're not overhauling the colors, although like they said, they will have one uniform that incorporates the Oilers blue. But yeah, man, let's change things up in Houston. So to honor the prospect of getting wild and getting into this bull thing, I will give the Texans my uniform game ball for this week.
Not the Colts, just the Texans.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what is there to say about the Colts that hasn't already been said? They have good uniforms.
Yeah.
Not stoked on them, but they're good.
Tough one. I really wanted to lean in. I'm gonna just give it an honorable mention and just to cap off a great year by this Arizona Cardinals uniform team. Just worked as the ultimate neutral to whatever was against it. And I'm not a red guy. I am a cool color. Blues, greens, purples. Red is an accent. I'm wearing it on a hat just by happenstance. But
if your team is named after a bird that is red,
well, yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, I'm usually not a guy who likes, an all red uniform, but the all reds that the Cardinals have had and their, white variants against these Seahawks, just strong. The Cardinals have just been a good neutral against most uniforms all year, and especially with the dominance of blue, it always serves as a decent compliment. A game I watched truly none of. The Chiefs-Chargers is just always so classic. Agreed. It's just such a staple, and I've just got to give it to them. Yeah. And I do like the alternating. I don't think it's totally uncommon, but it's not like super frequent to go colored jersey, white pants versus white jersey, colored pants. Just a nice little dichotomy there. And I like that out of the Chiefs and Chargers. And for the Chargers, their colored tops, white bottoms are their best uniforms. For the Chiefs, they've got a lot of good uniforms, but I think the white uniform or white jersey, colored pants, probably their best set, especially when it, Chargers are wearing the white helmets, Chiefs are wearing the red helmets. It does a nice little breakup thing. Just very appealing to look at. I, again, have watched none of this game.
And that's not one that I expect you to watch, Kale. Please don't engage with that game any further.
I'm not watching Blaine Gabbert. You can't make me.
It was Blaine Gabbert? I don't even, like I said,
Blaine Gabbert started for the Chiefs.
All right. He's one of those, like, if you body swap Blaine Gabbert and CJ Beathard, no way you could get me to know which one's which. 0%.
I don't know what either of them look like in the face. So
right. So, and to me, it's like they both went to the same school, even though I know Gabbert went to Missouri and Beathard went to Iowa. In my mind, they're just the same guy. And, like, you can't convince me otherwise.
Missouri is sort of the Iowa of the South.
Is it even the South? I'd argue it's just in the SEC for no reason. But
it counts.
Yeah, they're good. They were good this year, so hopefully they can keep that rolling. Rolling right into head scratchers. Perfect segue. I got one that's like, it's more of a bozo head scratcher than like a specific sequence or a specific play head scratcher. But it just has to be said. And Kale, this is right up your alley because it involves maybe your favorite side character in the entire NFL right now, Jameis Winston. The New Orleans Saints were tied 17-17 with the Atlanta Falcons until they weren't, basically, until Desmond Ridder decided he was going to start hitting DBs right between the numbers, and the Saints just ran away with this thing in the second half like a runaway freight train. And it's 41-17, and there's a minute 20 left in the game, and the Falcons turn it over at their own 1 yard line. So the game's over. and you figure they can take a knee, certainly. But you have Jamal Williams, who hasn't scored a touchdown all year, who led the league in touchdowns last year, and has just been, grinding it out in New Orleans. All kinds of disappointment for him this year. And the team wants to let him get his one touchdown. And Jameis is leading the charge. And Dennis Smith says, no, you're not allowed to do that. Which, by the way, like all time, like the problem starts and ends there. Like Dennis just has to be more flexible. I keep calling him Dennis Smith. It's Dennis Allen. They ignore Dennis Allen. Again, not a good sign if your team is just ignoring the head coach. Jameis does it himself, but, he said it was a team decision and other players on the team backed him. Notably, the defensive guy. Shoot, I forgot which guy on Twitter backed him today. Not Demario Davis, the other one.
Cam Jordan?
Cam Jordan backed Jameis on X today. And so did Kamara last night. They go in, they line up as if they're going to kneel the ball, which, again, big faux pas. Like, not a big deal if you just line up in a regular formation and run it in, but they line up to kneel it down and instead run it in. That leads to Arthur Smith getting very upset with Dennis Allen after the game. And rather than, you can see him mouthing, you can see Arthur Smith saying, that's effed up, that's BS, apologize. So what does Dennis Allen do when he first gets to the podium? Throws his whole team under the bus and apologizes. If that doesn't get you fired after you already should have been fired, Jameis did all he could. If Jameis is the reason that Dennis Allen gets fired, he's getting unlimited po' boys and beers in New Orleans for the rest of his life if he wants them, because that would be chef's kiss way for Allen to go out. Dude, grow some, I'm not going to say anything, sexist here, but, stand your ground, stand on business, get some courage, and back your team. Your team wanted Jamal Williams to get a touchdown. Back your team.
No, I get where you're coming from.
You don't apologize for scoring a touchdown. This isn't Little League.
Coming out in a victory formation and fake victory formation run in the end zone.
I've agreed. That part was
when you're up 41-17 is a bad move. I'm not saying from the player perspective. I'm saying from the coach. If he straight up didn't call and he's just like, yeah, that's crazy. Like, I can't believe they did that. I don't totally blame them. Because it is like a disrespectful thing. And if it came from the coach, like, I'm not saying you're totally throwing your team under the bus because, like, your team owned it. But you've just got to at least deflect. Like, you
can't let that immediately be your reaction is like, no, my guys are in the wrong. Because they wanted something, and they wanted something for their guy. And instead of backing their guy, you backed your division rival's head coach who got fired less than 5 hours later. That was, it was a big, like, old school coaching fraternity, like, this is the way things have always been done sort of move, and I just can't get behind it.
Agree to disagree. My head scratcher, Jacksonville. We just talked about how losing 5 of their last 6, a division that was kind of squarely in their possession. They were in control. It's winning in. And they're down to a 5-win Titans team. That is not doing well. The quarterback has 2 offensive weapons in Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins, who are both, aging. Their defense is up and down. There's so many opportunities to succeed here. The Jaguars' final drive of the season, what it would end up being. They start this by running the ball 8 yards. They then, and of course it opens up highlights instead of the box score. They then just target, they get the ball, run it, immediate 8-yard gain. And this is a Titans team that is, I think, finished 10th or 11th in defensive rushing DVOA. but has not been the same staunch running, like just real stout running defense as they'd been of late. They've had some big slip-ups in the last 5 weeks where they're allowing some decent rushing attempts. They don't try and run it once on 2nd and 2 for 3 straight plays. And I get, clock running. This is all inside the 2-minute warning at this point. Trevor Lawrence just straight up overthrows, will either throw behind or overthrow 3 different players in the course of this final drive. It is.
Let's not forget the first of those, which was off the fingertips of Calvin Ridley, 60 yards downfield. Not the best throw, but also if I'm Calvin Ridley, I gotta have that ball.
I literally just watched it. It's a bit it's not quite breadbasket, but it's close. But just airmailing the next two, airmailing the one to Engram and airmailing the one to I forget who's 15. The guy from I'm blanking on names. He used to play in Arizona. Christian Kirk.
Kirk's 13, but was it Kirk?
Maybe it was Kirk.
Seems likely, considering I've never heard of a 15 receiver on the Jags.
I'll tell you right now. No, it wasn't Kirk. It was
Oof.
It was Tim Jones.
Tim Jones? You're just making guys up. It's Tim Jones.
It's Tim Jones, number 15.
Oh, boy.
He had 11 receptions for 83 yards on the season.
Oh, there's another source of your problems.
That's crazy. I learned about a new player today.
My goodness.
He's a UDFA because he does. I say that because he doesn't have a. It's his 2nd season. He's a UDFA out of Southern Miss.
Yeesh. Career high 32 yards.
That's your
guy on 3rd and 2.
What's worse, going to Tim Jones on 3rd and 2 for his? Let me just check. His 18th target of the season. Would you rather go to Tim Jones for his 18th target of the season, or Chase Claypool with the division on the line?
I might rather go to Tim Jones. It sure looked to me like Claypool made his route a little too deep. Not that excuses Tua throwing a lollipop, and he threw multiple lollipops on that last drive, but yikes.
All right. Playoff time, Jackson.
Playoff time. Let's get into it. Now, we're just going to go through the 6 games. We're going to talk about them in the order that they appear, and we're just going to give our thoughts on the game in no, structured format. It's just going to be, what are we excited about? Maybe a prediction here and there, but let's just get excited. That's the main goal here. Just give me some juice for the super wild card weekend. And we begin, interestingly enough, with the game that I might personally be most excited about. This game for sure not getting the biggest ratings. In fact, they think it might get the worst ratings, and that's why it's in the early slot on the Saturday window. But Cleveland at Houston, you talk about intrigue for ball knowers, for guys that have been just loving on people who have been performing all season. These two teams have earned their way here perhaps as much as anybody, and I'm so excited to watch them square off.
Straight up, the favorite film piece I wrote this year was the early season breakdown of the Jim Schwartz defense. Was so much goddamn fun to watch those first 3 games where that team was on full tilt. That Browns team was just going absolutely bonkers. Maybe it was week 4, but those first few weeks of that Browns defense is incredible. Now, I know that they are really banged up coming into this game, but the fact that this team still has a Myles Garrett, still has just one of the best defensive lines in all of football. They're missing a ton of dudes. They are missing Denzel Ward being back in the picture, big. Ogbo being back in the picture, also big. from there, like, you're still missing guys. I'm trying to see. I thought they were missing more players. They sacked Garrett this week, which was good. Damn, I really thought there were more guys out. I'm so glad this team is getting healthy. DeJuan Jones is a guy, I guess. Rodney McLeod. Now I'm just naming dudes. Yeah, this is going to be awesome. This is so much fun. This is I'm excited to see playoff Joe. I'm excited to see a really young Texans team get a chance to make an upset. Before, like, this, we're one matchup in, but I just want to say about any team could win a game this weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised. And I think that legitimately. This is a high variance Texans team with a really strong offense and Texans are now, I think, without Grenard. And I'm pretty sure Texans have one or two guys go down this game. But just a second in defensive DVOA defense in the Cleveland Browns versus a, top 10 passing offense by DVOA in the Houston Texans. I am beyond fired up for this matchup.
I agree. And now I was going to give the DVOA rankings for each of these teams in context as to, what we might expect. And I think this game is one of the most misleading in terms of those DVOA rankings. Because you look at the Cleveland Browns, they're 25th in offense and second in defense, 16th in special teams for an overall DVOA ranking of 8th. And that's already good enough. But I wish to heck that Football Outsiders still had the tab that you could click on that said DVOA since week whatever, because clearly they're not the 25th ranked offense since Flacco's taken over.
Jackson, I have got to show you around the spreadsheets because you can do that. I won't because it's hard, but I will go to RBSDM.
So it's hard, he admits.
Of course it is. Of course it's hard. It's never going to be easy when you're doing it from a pivot table versus, just the straight up, system, built-in tool. Mm-hmm. But the offensive DVOA the offensive EPA per play since Flacco took over isn't as strong as you think. It's still 27. And the drop back EPA per play is also 27. So...
Okay, so throw it out the window. I guess they're still quote unquote bad.
They're not that bad. It's just they're not like Houston. Like, funny enough, offensively in those last 5 weeks, they are next to Houston in EPA.
Well, Houston lost Dell, like we said, like that.
Yeah,
that was part of the other context I was going to provide because Houston. If I'm just going back to like overall DVOA stuff, Houston's 12th overall, 14th offense, 17th defense, 9th special teams. But I think you would find that offense was humming for a while there mid-season. And Tank Dell having that two-headed monster with Dell and Collins was a huge reason for it. So I'm upset that, like, of all the injuries that played out throughout the year, that's probably still the one I'm most upset about, not just because of what it does to the Texans, but because of how it happened. Like, don't put your 150-pound, gadget receiver, not gadget, but like, he's a small guy and he should not be at the bottom of a pile the combined weight of a Mack truck on the goal line. So that will always upset me.
Jackson, let's just rattle off for the people because we're going to be talking a lot of matchup stuff. Let's just rattle off all of the various real narrative implications of each of these games quick. This is the Deshaun Watson successor against the team that they traded Deshaun Watson to, who's actively doing better without Watson. Did you see the new version of the Browns jersey going around where they
I did.
They did put the survivor, the assault survivor ally flag instead of Watson's name. Beautiful small touch there.
Only slightly undercut by the fact that he is still owed over $200 million guaranteed.
Let's cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like their vibes are good, and the people that know me know that I love wearing different hats on this show, and I've got a Cleveland Browns Brownie the Elf hat in the closet, ready to come out the day that Deshaun Watson is no longer in the picture. But as long as he's in the picture, can't do it. Sorry, Brownie.
Also, just a quick coaching pivot, small tangent. As the Titans weigh head coach Mike Vrabel's future this weekend, he's interested in the idea of returning to the Patriots should New England part ways with Bill Belichick. Not super news, but figure I'd bring it up. Let's go back. Miami, Kansas City. Tyreek Hill Bowl. Huge deal. Should be a hyper-explosive offense game. That's a fun narrative one, Tyreek's return to Arrowhead. Because the last time they played together was in Germany. Pittsburgh, Buffalo.
Can we just do the narratives for each one at the end of the preview?
That's fine. I was going to just rattle them off so we get them out of the way. But yeah, let's.
I think we go narratives at the end of the section. Like that's the most. That's like the last little cherry on top. Okay. So
right. let's Kansas City. Let's dive in.
Absolutely. Now, I had a little, one sentence written down for each game to kind of start it off. And I think for me, it's Waddle and Mostert coming back is the thing that's making this interesting for me. Because I have not enjoyed, we've talked about it, we have not enjoyed watching Miami's offense lately. But, there have been times this year where they looked like a wagon, and theoretically they should be the healthiest they've been in a month and a half, if not longer. So that at least provides some intrigue for me where, even if Miami's not going on a deep playoff run, maybe they can resurrect that magic long enough to stave off what's clearly a lessened version of the playoff dominant Chiefs. And for the Chiefs, meanwhile, this is probably their one home game. So this is their chance to, ride out the old playoff magic that they've had ever since Mahomes got into the building.
Well, that is assuming that Buffalo beats Pittsburgh. Which in a sloppy weather game,
probably
anything can go. This I keep thinking of as a defensive game. I get what you're saying. It's really going to come down to a pretty elite Kansas City Chiefs defense coming against a high-powered Miami Dolphins offense that held a good a top 5 in EPA per play Buffalo offense. 214 points. Like letting up a special team touchdown should not be the end all be all. Definitely important, but it shouldn't take away from a really stout defensive performance game wide by the Miami Dolphins, who have just had a really strong defense of late. Now, Kansas City Chiefs defense, the last time they played Miami, why was that a word salad? I don't know. But really, Spags is spitting in this game, just truly going all out in this game. A minus 41.2% single game DVOA in Germany in defensive passing DVOA. I think their fourth best outing of the year, but shut down a McDaniel offense that kind of continues to just putter toward the end, just sputter out toward the end. This is, again, hampered by an injury bug, which is tough, but just getting in your last let's call them 5 games. Losing to the Titans, only putting up 27 points against one of the worst passing defenses in the league. Blanking the Jets 30-0. Barely beating the Cowboys in a pretty unimpressive offensive game. And then 56-19, 21-14. This is an offense that has not performed well against good defenses all year. Save the Jets, who should be touted as a good defense. But
yeah, and that's the type of thing where how much credit are you going to give the offense for just punching it in every time the Jets give it back to you in their own red zone? Like they didn't win that game because they played great on offense. The Jets just handed it to them both times, and they took advantage to their credit, but it's not like they were, putting together clutch drives when they needed them. They kept getting chances over and over again.
So we'll see how that game goes. It'll be very interesting to see how, the 2021 Chiefs, the last time, I was going to say the last time they went to a Super Bowl, they're reigning Super Bowl champions.
Yeah. And they didn't go in 2021, ironically enough.
Yeah. But they were the team who kind of woke up late in season and rolled in further to the playoffs. Called a hot Bengals team, but it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle a Miami Dolphins defense led by Jalen Ramsey, Xavier Howard, and Javon Holland. I'm very curious to see it. It's going to be an uphill battle for them on the playoffs, but we shall see.
Yeah, I mean, if we're turning to narratives for a second here, the one that I'm surprised you didn't immediately mention because it is your headline today, the Tua stuff, is they're going to start really – the calls for Tua's replacement are going to come in pretty hot and heavy, assuming they lose this game. And, he's not got his extension, so there's no time like the present to do that replacing if you're going to do it. And meanwhile – Dolphins fans who we've experienced at Kale, they've been insufferable about defending this guy in the past. They are not at this point in time. I'll read you a tweet from number one Finn fan whose handle is @EliteTua. And if you can't trust @EliteTua's takes on Tua, then I don't know who you trust. 17 hours ago, he tweeted a picture of Tua saying, "They say you're a choker, number one. They say you're bad in January, number one. They say you're bad versus good teams, number one. They say you're Josh Allen's son, number one. They say Buffalo owns you, number one. They say you're not built for it, number one. How will you respond?" 5 hours later, quote tweet, "They were right again."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's going to keep going. If they don't win this game, that's those calls aren't going to get any quieter.
They nailed it. The people know ball. It's again, we've talked about when Tua gets off rhythm and is immediately thrown out of the pocket. It gets a little dicey for him. But this, and we know Spagnuolo can bring exotic pressures. We'll see how this game goes, but it is a real, this is Tua's legit first playoff game. It's kind of put up or shut up time.
And in every other, playoff clinch scenario or playoff do or die game he's played so far, he's had one of his worst games, excluding last night, which, maybe not one of his worst games, but certainly by no means a good game. You think about the 2020 and 2021 seasons, they had a chance to go to the playoffs with a win in the final week of the season both times. They got absolutely plastered by Buffalo that 2020 season, and I forget who did it to them in 21, so bad memory on my part, but they didn't win that one either. And last year they barely snuck in on the back of, good luck and Skylar Thompson winning in week 18. So it's kind of all we're working with here is
to be fair, it was the Jets. It wasn't luck. 21? They played the Jets.
Yeah, no, that's a game you should win. Not gonna lie. That's a game you should win. So he's got to come through at some point, or the writing's gonna be on the wall. And whether it's a big salacious name like Lawrence, or I'll even throw, crazy as it sounds, Justin Herbert to Miami. How crazy would that go? Or whatever the case may be, people are not going to be excited for a long-term future with Tua, assuming that they do not step up and win this game, which it doesn't sound like either of us are picking them to do.
I might. I haven't like laid out picks
Make it
yet.
frisky.
It's not a thing. I could like I said, I could easily see either team winning this game. I can see any more so than any other year. This playoff seeding could be all upsets, all chalk, and anywhere in between. I wouldn't be surprised by it. It feels like a cop out, but like I could see the Chiefs dropping this pretty easy.
Yeah.
If this offense just doesn't show up, I don't know. I could also see again the Dolphins not showing up.
There is a case to be made that, like, if Miami wins that game last night, they're just hosting Buffalo again this week. The best case scenario for Miami would have been tying, thereby getting themselves the 2 seed and dropping Pittsburgh to the 7th. So I don't know. There's a case to be made that they're in a better spot, even going to KC than having to play Buffalo again. But I still think home versus road, Miami is such a different team, and I think the same of KC in the playoffs. I think going in there and winning an Arrowhead has only been done by Joe Burrow and Tom Brady. So not sure Tua is looking to join that list.
We shall see.
Next up, the aforementioned Pittsburgh Steelers heading to Buffalo, 10-point underdogs, biggest spread of the first round. And Kale is not looking at it as a guarantee that Buffalo gets this done. Kale, I agree with you. I would still feel best about Buffalo, aside from every team but maybe Dallas in this first round. But, lay it out there. What's so concerning about this game for Buffalo?
It's just that it's going to be hell weather-wise. If I pull up the forecast for Orchard Park, New York, I'm pretty sure it is going to be Do you have the exact time for this? Because I can really get it down to a good window for you.
1:00 Sunday.
So it'll have been snowing for at least a day. It's gonna be a low of 22, high of 23. So just real right in that ballpark. And there's a high wind warning effect until next Wednesday, with gusts up to 70. So pretty inclement. They're going to get rain, shit you not, a rain snow mix Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then snow Saturday, Sunday.
This is how it ended for them last year. You do make a good point there. But at the same time, it's one thing to trust Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst, etc. at his disposal going into that wintry mix. Mason Rudolph heading in there and winning a game. I'm not going to say it's impossible by any means, but that would ruffle my feathers a little bit. I would have to reevaluate some of how I do, my quarterback internal evaluations if Mason Rudolph walked into that scenario and came out with a dub.
Driving through high floor. Just being able to do it against Ravens backups, like a mix of. I know they sat everyone on offense. I don't know their sitting stat on defense. I assume that like Roquan didn't play. I knew Jadeveon Clowney played because he got a hefty payday off of a single sack, but.
It's not like their offense was even that good in this game, but enough to win.
Pittsburgh, yeah. But I'm saying like when it gets down in the muck like this and you are relying on fresh legs, Najee, like the reason you run Jalen Warren so often the early part of the year is that you can keep Najee fresh late. You've got Najee, you've got Jalen Warren, you've got a quarterback who frankly threw 18 for 20. Like, let's not let that fly under the radar that Mason Rudolph, I'm sure if we pull up the NGS, it's an ugly chart and a chart that we'd laugh at if it was a high caliber quarterback. And I'm going to do it right now just to double check. But I'm sure it's not pretty. But like the fact that he could get it done in weather. Yeah, he had both his incompletions were 2 of his 3 passes outside of 10 yards. And the other one went for a 15-yard or 15 air yard touchdown pass. If you can just have a guy complete in short yardage, The last time the Bills were in a playoff game in what we thought was Bills weather, it did not go well. So this is a team that now runs the ball more. This is a team that has a little bit more going for them on the ground in general. And their offensive line is just solid. And I think they're also just getting more out of their short yardage options. Like just having a Trent Sherfield step up a little bit more this season has been valuable. And you look at the passing chart for Allen, like he's been throwing a lot more under the middle stuff. He's still got some crazy YOLO balls in him. Like he's still got some crazy like 20, 30, 40 plus yard touchdown passes this season that are exclusively air yard balls. But like he's been doing better managing the ball underneath, especially since the Dorsey firing. And if he's able to do that in a short weather game, that's a big deal.
I agree. And more importantly, I think if you're looking at a situation where it's like a crucial catch they need to have you noticed, like I have, that Gabe Davis is nowhere to be found, and Khalil Shakir's name frequently starting to appear at the top of their receiving leaders charts at the end of games. And last night, he goes 6 for 6 on targets with 105 yards to lead the Bills. And some of those were either like 2nd and long, 3rd and long, big plays, burning guys down the sideline. He gets the catch inside the 5 to set up the go-ahead touchdown. Big coming out party in the last couple weeks for Shakir.
Absolutely. A huge deal there for the 5th round pick. Yeah. Getting these wide receiver 3s in. It'll be interesting to see about Gabe Davis's status, but even still, he's a boomer bust guy. He's an all or nothing deep ball guy. So his powers are mitigated in a game like this.
Now let's talk narratives. A lot of it is about the Bills.
A lot of it is about the weather. Like, I think this is just pure, like, grit and grind, old school Rust Belt football.
Yeah. I think that if you're looking at the Steelers side of things, I think win, lose, or draw, the fact that not only is Mason Rudolph your clear starter in this game, but the fact that they ran a poll on Twitter today. It was like, who would you, want to start this game, assuming everyone's healthy? And it was like 85% Rudolph, 15% Pickett. I want to talk to the 15% Pickett, see the world through their eyes for a moment, because to me, it's never been more clear that after 2 years, a team is admitting defeat on a first-round pick quarterback.
Also, you're not going – of all the games to go tiny hands, you're not going in the bad weather.
No.
You're not going sub-freezing bad weather.
No. And side note, how bad is Mitch Trubisky? Like, this season couldn't be a worse reflect. Like, a guy that a lot of teams viewed as, like, a serviceable step-in starter after his year in Buffalo and, getting the chance to compete. And, at the beginning of last year, he quote-unquote won the Steelers job briefly. Could not look worse right now than he does after losing those 2 games to Arizona and New England. And then Rudolph steps in and just immediately turns the team back into a playoff team.
Turning him back into a playoff team is a stretch.
Were they in playoff position before? Sure were.
I never betting against Tomlin's always a mistake. But this is like narrative-wise, this is just pure like Rust Belt, how bad do you want it kind of game for me. Like this is just like old school nose to the ground football. I think there's larger implications about like who the Bills are if they win or lose this game, how they shake out in the playoff picture. Do they just immediately ascend back to like legit contender status, even though they've had such an unnatural or atypical route to a 2 seed? But I agree with you saying that the Bills, like just on paper, opponent wise, have the best shot to go chalk in their game. It's just that weather game is the ultimate leveling factor.
Yeah, the last thing I'll add is that the odds makers certainly agree. They have the Bills installed as the second favorites in the AFC, and it's not the fact that they are second, it's by how much that surprises me. Ravens, obviously, the clear-cut favorites, plus 140. Bills, 280. and then it jumps to 450 for the defending champion Chiefs, 750 for the Dolphins, and then here might be probably the most intriguing one, 14-1 for Cleveland. I mean, I would, if I were to bet, which I'm not going to, but if I were to bet, that 14-1 Cleveland seems clearly like the best value.
Yeah, value-wise for sure.
NFC time. Green Bay Dallas up first, the 4 o'clock window on Sunday. Talk about a game that we've seen before now.
Mike McCarthy,
if I'm going to start the narratives right off the top, I don't see it happening. But imagine if Jordan Love recreates the Cowboys fans celebrating. They think it's over, still 120 out on the clock, and then Love comes out and leads the game-winning field goal drive in Dallas. You want to talk about a full circle moment. That would be hilarious if that were the way this ends.
I'm so high on this Packers team, and it's just this defense is so bad. Yeah. And CD Lamb is just going to go for 400 yards.
Agreed. We're not doing we've just talked all year about things we miss about FO. What I miss about FO is the SAF fantasy playoff draft. And I recreated it with my fantasy league from back home this year. So we've got 7 teams competing in the same format, just without an article being written about it on a popular football website. And I had the second overall pick, and I took CeeDee Lamb. So hoping for big things out of number 88 in blue and silver / internal turquoise. That's my guy right there. I think in that format, the most games you're getting out of a Niner or a Raven is 3. So you just need the Cowboys to get to the NFC Championship game, and CD's getting his 3 games, and I think he's going to go bonkers this postseason.
Yeah, Fantasy Data doesn't do a good job with that's where I go for all my target share info and like snap count split. But sorry, they say you're a choker, number 1. They say you're bad in January, number 1. That just got retweeted on my timeline by Dirtbag Queer, Victoria Zeller. On Twitter, all times. All times. Man. All time tweets to get a Bills account posted onto my timeline. Or to have the Bills account posted on my timeline. But the back to the game at hand. It's just too one-sided. I think we could make it an offensive shootout, but it's just too one-sided of a game. I think this is like the real legit favorite game here.
I see it. I really, really like the Cowboys in this postseason, in this specific game. Like, they are the team that I feel most confident in that's playing this weekend, because obviously the Niners and Ravens – it's dangerous how much I feel like those 2 are the favorites. Like, I feel like one of them is bound for a letdown just based on how confident I feel in those 2. But of the teams that are playing this weekend, I feel most confident in the Cowboys. And the only reason to not feel confident in them is the fact that it's the Cowboys, is the fact that it's the name on the jersey that hasn't made it to an NFC Championship game since 1995. And we're talking about them, they should go back this year. And that in and of itself is worrisome, particularly when you consider the karmic implications of them having to host Detroit again in round 2. That would be that's the one game where, like, if you're trying to crack the code on the playoff fantasy draft, that's the one that you have to take a stance on one way or another. Muted.
I didn't have much important to say anyway. I just cannot.
Prophetic. Narratives.
It's Mike McCarthy. It is like the Cowboys have not even fully guaranteed that Mike McCarthy will come back, and the fact he could be ousted by his former team is very intriguing. I don't think it'll happen. I think it would happen potentially later against a A Lions team that wins, a Rams team that wins. Who's to say? But I guess it's impossible to get the Rams because they're
only if. Oh wait, yeah, you're right. It is impossible.
It's impossible for them to get the Rams. So it's Detroit, Eagles, or Bucks. But we shall see. I keep relying on that because this is literally the most out there NFL playoff weekend that I've seen yet. And the Cowboys are a bit of a poop their pants team sometimes. They just kind of collapse out of nowhere for no reason. I don't think the lights are too bright yet. I think if they legitimately get past this game, they probably get an NFC Championship game, and then they poop their pants. But
that's the thing is, like, there's still so many opportunities for the poop the pants game. This reminds me of last year when they went into Tampa and just handled business. Like, there's just, as much as we love what the Packers have done this year, that defense can't stop this Cowboys offense. Like, there's just, if they allow that to happen, then Mike shouldn't be allowed to leave the building that night. That's a bridge too far because they are an objectively awful defense, and the Cowboys have been one of the top 5 offenses in the league, pole to pole all season long. So if they can't handle business here, that's it. I feel quite confident in that game. Next up, a game that we kind of just teased. Stafford returns home. The first playoff game in the history of Ford Field, and Matt Stafford is the opposing quarterback. I mean, that's why this is in the primetime slot Sunday night. I mean, this is narrative fuel as high octane as you can bring it. And yet I feel like I have a read on this game, but I want to hear yours first.
You can go ahead because I don't have a read on this game. It is a team that is fully, like, this Detroit Lions team is pretty much fully stocked for a defensive return, getting CJ Gardner-Johnson and Aleem McNeil back, I believe. They've just been activating guys off IR the last 2 weeks and look officially fully competent to be able to play real ball. I am really looking forward to this game that has the biggest, like, hard matchup moment of, like, Stafford returning to Detroit, Goff playing against his former team in his first playoff game since leaving the Rams. Like, ultimate, clashing of, former teams that I am very excited for.
I see all those angles, and I do respect the heck out of what the Rams have done the second half of the season. I respect the heck out of Stafford, not just rejuvenating, but like ever since he returned to the lineup, they've been a different offense. I respect the heck out of Puka Nacua and what he's done, breaking all the records his year. I saw the draft clip today from the Rams official team account where they had the behind-the-scenes video of McVay and Les Snead talking about, what they want to do in that draft slot and how much they like Puka. I love all that stuff. All that being said, the Rams' most impressive feats this year have been losing in overtime in a rain game against the Ravens and beating the Browns in Joe Flacco's first start in a game that was, like, pretty much tied until Flacco threw a pick in the fourth quarter. So other than that, like, you're 10-7. I respect the heck out of you. Your wins are Seahawks, Colts, Cardinals, Seahawks again, Cardinals again, Browns, and then Commanders, Saints, Giants, and, this past week, which didn't mean anything because it was Wentz versus Darnold. So, like, not seeing it yet with the Rams. I feel like the energy in that building is going to be so charged. And yes, I like the whole Stafford comes home and spoils the party narrative, but I also just like the party. Give me the Lions in this game. I feel like there's just too much, like, good vibes mojo coming out. And also, do you know what the single lowest rated position unit is by DVOA in the playoffs? It's in this game.
Single low. single lowest. Is it Rams defensive passing?
Rams are 32nd in special teams.
Special teams.
Something's going wrong on special teams for the Rams in this game. I just don't know what it is yet. But they've been bad in the kicking game. They don't do well covering. They might fumble a punt at some point. Like, I'm just telling the audience now, some negative special teams play is going to happen for LA in this game.
Detroit's not exactly. I guess Detroit is pure zero, slightly below negative, slightly negative. But
they're 19th. We're talking 30 seconds.
It is straight up dead middle. So
negative 9.8% special teams for the Rams, 31st. So not only are they negative 9.8, New England 31st. They're only negative 3.4. So we're talking by far the worst special teams DVOA.
I'm always curious about how those play. Like, New England was bad in 2022 and had had their personal worst in franchise history, but had so much of it dragged down by the double Najee Harris, not Najee Harris. Who was the Week 18 Colts running back?
Yeah,
Nyheim Hines.
Yeah,
had the Nyheim Hines double touchdown Week 18 game, and they only finished negative 4.3%. So, like, it shows you how truly bad this Rams team is. But I'm just curious, what is the impetus? Like, how many touchdowns am I forgetting about that they've given up? How many?
You've got the game-ending one against Baltimore in that game where I said they were, their most impressive performance of the season, and yet punt return touchdown to end it. That doesn't help.
Forgot about that.
The punt returner for the Ravens too, not even their top guy.
They have a ludicrous, like, the negative 24.2 in punt is insane. I've never seen a negative 17.7 field goal and extra point. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they just don't really have a kicker. That doesn't help.
Doesn't help. You're right. On to the next one, unless you have more.
On to the last one, in fact. Philly, Tampa. Maybe the
Which of these games is on Peacock?
Miami, Kansas City.
Not have access to.
Miami, Kansas City.
That's so messed up.
It is. It's terrible. Everyone's seen the meme by now. Selena Gomez whispering in Taylor Swift's ear, and the tweet says, "Hey, I heard Travis's game is on Peacock," and she just goes, like, it's terrible. It's really atrocious that's what they're doing to us. It's one thing to, like, make us subscribe to Prime Video for a full season of Thursday Night Football, but to spring it on us late in the season, like, hey, we have this Bills-Chargers game that you can only get on Peacock, and then 2 weeks later, nope, you also have a playoff game on Peacock. Like, that.
Prime Video is at least easy. Like, Prime Video is like, oh, if you have an Amazon Prime account, you have a Prime Video account.
Correct.
Peacock is just straight up like a niche service. Like, this is all
the Premier League fans out there are counting their chickens. They're like, oh, this is easy. We love Peacock. No one else is.
Yeah. This is exclusively for soccer and NASCAR fans and
office reruns.
And dude, did you know at one point NBC based their entire pricing model on Peacock around how much Office you could watch? Like, there was one tier of like certain series of The Office with commercials. The next one was like full Office unabridged, no commercials. And then the last one was like, you also get exclusive behind the scenes and like DVD commentary. And like they straight up had their pricing model around just The Office. So shows you the state of that streaming service and how
total sense to me.
Well, they know tax.
I'm upset. And I believe that I have access to it via, back channels. Someone in the family is paying for it somehow. But, like, come on. It's a playoff football game.
It's the steroids version of, we're going to air this show immediately after the Super Bowl and get residual runoff. Like, I think they premiered like Big Bang Theory. They've premiered like shows after the Super Bowl and being like, hey, this is our lead out. We're gonna get a ton of views for this. Someone's gonna want to watch, and that's this on steroids, where it's like, hey, you're gonna forget about Peacock when you cancel this free trial in a week. Here's the season finale of La Brea.
Yeah, I mean, obvious money grab, and it's going to work because football is football, and that's what I think is annoying us about it. So on that note, a game that is on Fox, Philly-Tampa.
No, that's on ESPN Monday night.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, you're so right.
Which I also think is dumber than having it on Peacock. Having this be the Monday night game.
Oh, I've hated the Monday night thing ever since it started.
Crazy. It's so weird.
Because they make us wait until 4:00 on Saturday, which I guess they did before when it was only 4 games. But like, you're telling me we're adding 2 games and we still have to wait all Saturday for the playoffs to start? Like, come on now. Where's the Saturday early window?
Frankly, this is the game I'm most worried about. The Eagles are 1-5 in their last 6. Same as the Dolphins, but like the Eagles have just looked hapless. Losing, like it is one thing to lose a 1 touchdown game to the Buffalo Bills. It is another entirely to lose like 27-7, 27-10. I forget the final score of that Giants game, but it was bad. It was bad. You shouldn't allow that to happen to the New York Giants. You were playing for a playoff game and you got waxed. The defense is completely broken. It's already banged up. Way too young. The offense has been pretty wholly unproductive. I think they've actually they've fallen well out of the top 10 of offensive DVOA. I just want to check that. Yeah, they are barely hanging on. They are 10th, and it's mostly off the strength of that rushing offense. But this is a team that is kind of fully broken, and I'm worried about how well they handle an upstart Bucs team that, like we said, 9-0 against the Panthers is nothing special. But
no, this is the game where like either team is thrilled that they're playing the other one, and any other team is like, why couldn't we draw them in the first round? These teams are limping in. And the Bucs offense has been bad. The Eagles offense has been bad for a long time. The Eagles defense is the much bigger problem. Weirdly enough, like Todd Bowles and his defense, when we did our preseason pod, Todd Bowles was the odds-on first coach fired favorite. And now he's a defensive coach leading a defense that we feel probably the best about of any of the 4 units in this playoff game.
Yeah.
Finger got bent in half. That's a big deal too.
Oh no, he avoided the break.
Still, it got bent in half.
Yeah, well, there's no ligament damage. So
AJ Brown and Devontae Smith have got hurt in the last 2 weeks. They might both play. We'll see, but seems tenuous at best. Either that they'll both play or that they'll both be as effective as they, can be at their best.
If we're ranking upsets, I would go Eagles 1 as most likely, which is tough to say in a 4-5 game. Eagles 1.
They are 3-point favorites, so
yeah, it's
a catch.
Closer. 2, it's some combination of Kansas City and Buffalo, if only Buffalo's sake for the weather.
Buffalo over Cleveland?
Is that like really an upset? The
Cleveland is 2.5-point road favorites. I mean, that's basically what the Eagles are, 3 points. So
I would much if Cleveland's 2.5-point road favorites. I definitely do not like. I don't think they're upset candidates. I think they have a good chance of handling business over Houston. I'm more saying I am more worried about the Bills in a crazy wet game, or the Chiefs in a high variance Dolphins game than either of those. And the Dolphins are.
You think Cleveland is more likely to win their game than both Buffalo and Kansas City?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not disagreeing with you, but if that's the case, run to the sports book now and put your 14-1 Cleveland AFC champion ticket down.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know about them going all the way. I'm just saying against Houston. I'm just saying right now, like this Super Wildcard Weekend matchup to matchup, I think that Cleveland just has the best and most handleable matchup.
Well, let's really make the case then, because say one of those two other teams loses, then you're talking Cleveland might be either at KC or at Buffalo next week instead of going to Baltimore. So then it really opens up for them, because obviously Baltimore's going to be tough for anyone. Cleveland could go in there and win. They did it once already with Deshaun, but I think, Baltimore's clearly coming in. They're rested. They're the hottest momentum team in the AFC right now. Like, if you're Cleveland and you get a Kansas City upset or Buffalo upset, then all of a sudden that roadmap for you to win the AFC is looking pretty nice.
Going into Baltimore, actually, I think doesn't totally hurt them. Like going into a divisional opponent for
it's true. It is a third time matchup.
Throw stuff kind of an anything goes deal, and
yeah,
they already have Cleveland's one win against Baltimore came in Baltimore. So they swapped games, but they were both on respective road trips. So
yeah. And again, very weird game. Deshaun played his best game as a Brown in his last game as a Brown this year. Everything's different the next time around, but they're not going to be intimidated walking in there. All of this has nothing to do, of course, with Philly-Tampa, which we will now resume talking about, however briefly, having expressed our serious fears about the Eagles. I'll flip it. How crazy would it be to see the Eagles back in the Super Bowl, acting like none of this ever happened?
Very, very.
I agree.
This is not it's not the same defense. I think I'm very worried about them down the stretch. It's a 2-note offense, just two running backs, 2 wide receivers. The full run back of this team is going to be a little bit tough, but especially just the road. They win this game, they play. They win this game, they immediately likely end up playing San Francisco if everything else goes chalk, which I do expect out of the NFC. I do expect the NFC more to be more chalk than the AFC.
Yeah,
but
and we've talked about the 4 big NFC teams all year, and now it feels like 2.5, maybe 3, and I don't count the Eagles in that whatsoever.
No, the Eagles are definitely 4th of those 4 now after a 10-1 start, which is crazy.
Would you rather say you're putting a long shot bet down and say the odds are the same? Eagles to win the NFC or Rams to win the NFC?
Wow. I'd still go Eagles just off the I just think Detroit is that much better of a first round matchup than Tampa Bay. That I think it's a little tougher to prognosticate that, but best on best, the Eagles at least actually, no, I can't say that. I was going to say at least the Eagles showed up against San Francisco, but they kind of
not really.
And
it's not even obviously they played San Francisco twice, did the Rams, and
I guess if you're thinking
just look at how they are right now, not even common opponents, just going in opposite directions.
Yeah, I get you.
I still agree, though. I would take the Eagles in that twosome, but I don't think either of them have a chance. It's going to come down to
it's more about the first round matchup than the San Francisco matchup.
Yes, fully support that. And as much as I don't see it for the Eagles, I do think they have a good chance just to beat a Tampa team that, above their pay grade to even be here, happy to be here. Obviously, they're looking for the plucky upset, but they've looked really bad the last 2 weeks too. In addition to not really being a playoff caliber roster, they've limped in not quite as much as the Eagles, but close to it. So I will take the Eagles in this matchup and immediately take them to lose next round.
All right.
Little playoff cheap seats. You feeling it?
Make it quick.
Playoff
Because the
cheap
games
seats.
will not be cheap.
No. But let's talk about the games that are like attainable, because you've got a $404 get-in price to the Rams Lions game, which makes sense. So I'm going to throw that one out. And the only other one I'm going to throw out is Green Bay Dallas, because you look at the page, it's a classic Dallas switcheroo. Tickets as low as $111. Not really.
Standing room only.
So those are the two that are out. Otherwise, here are your options. $88, Miami at Kansas City. Forget paying for Peacock. Just pay $88 to go to Kansas City. $111. Oh, sorry, I just said that one. $118. Philly at Tampa. Raymond James Stadium in the pirate ship. Go for it. Little more coin here. $170. Cleveland at Houston, the game we've said we are excited about, but it is in Houston, which not a stadium anybody likes much. $196. You're in the slush. Have fun in Buffalo. Make sure to bring an extra jacket. 4 options. What's your cheap seat?
It's got to be the Eagles-Dolphins or the Chiefs-Dolphins. Just the most explosive possible matchup there. Feels like the most potential for fireworks. You've just got to respect that on its own as a potential, just good football game overall. Like maybe Browns-Texans, but it feels like such a downgrade in terms of pedigree that I don't know.
It's a lot of money, too. It's double the price.
It's double the price, you're right.
Got to factor that in. And look, I know we're talking cheap seats and which value is the best, but I think the best value for this weekend is parked at home on the couch.
Yes,
like, if I'm a fan of one of these teams, I get it, but I'm going to love being indoors this weekend and watching all 6 football games.
That is damn right. That is honestly preferred way to watch most football games.
Most of them. I agree.
It is the least attendable sport.
Absolutely. And it's like you almost have to have more respect for the crazy guys that wear, chest paint and gigantic bead necklaces where the beads are the sizes of footballs and spikes on their heads. Like that's a lifestyle at that point. Like you're making a very serious commitment. And those are like, that's what people know them as all throughout walks of life. So that could never be me because I don't even like going to football games. I'd rather watch at home.
Yeah, it is like you got to respect Fireman at a certain point. You get why he retired and why he came back because those men are sickos.
Side note, I went to a brewery this weekend and drank a beer called Fireman End, and it was Bud Light, essentially. It was a 4.2% lager. And I was like, this is what Fireman End's putting his name on? It's basically just water.
Good for them.
That's all we got. I'm so excited for the playoffs. I think you can tell by not just how long we've gone, but like there's a lot of energy, not only in this pod, but around the football landscape. This is one of the best times of year. And we have much more to dissect, but Kale, playoff football is here. Let's go.
Nothing better. The last few licks of the season, you got to savor every drop.
Yeah, sandwich is almost gone, folks, and we'll be here to collect the crumbs when it is. So enjoy the weekend. Hopefully we helped get you ready. But in the meantime, for Kale, I'm Jackson, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
See ya.